Hello everyone, this is Professor DePaulo. Welcome you back to Psych 265, Research in Psychology Online. And I'm going to be going over how to write the discussion section of the APA manuscript. But first, I want to walk you through the results section. So remember that we're doing this survey as a class on the role that social connectedness plays in terms of mental and psychological well-being. Right, so physical elements, which I measure in terms of somatization, and also psychological issues like depression, anxiety, and a bunch of other things as well. And the reason why I've decided to collect data on this issue is because of the pandemic. And so after the pandemic, there was a lot more of social isolation than there was before. Everybody got used to doing things remotely, and that's convenient at times, but then there's, pitfalls, and there's problems with that as well, in terms of we're just not as connected. We're connected online, but we're not as connected, sort of, I guess, the feeling of belongingness has decreased since the pandemic to a degree. And although we're getting over the pandemic, these were some critical years, especially for younger people. So that's why we're collecting data on this, to see how does social connectedness tie in with positive and negative aspects of life in general. So that's what we're writing the manuscript about. So there was a little bit of confusion. Some people were writing their own manuscript on their own research or research articles. No, the method section was based on the survey, and I gave you all that data in the video. And so some students need to go back and look at that video and realize that all the data is there, and write a coherent method section that's based on the survey that we're doing. That's the class study. So everything is geared toward this class survey on social connectedness, and it's linked to physical and mental well-being. So the results were based on that survey. So what I did was I compiled all the results, and I tested the 5 hypotheses that were proposed in the introduction. So if we go back to the introduction walkthrough, we can see at the end there were 5. So that last paragraph of the introduction had 5 hypotheses. Positive correlation between social connectedness and life satisfaction. Negative correlation between social connectedness and anxiety and depression. Negative correlation between social connectedness and somatization. GPA is positively correlated with social connectedness, and social connectedness is negatively correlated with stress. So these are some really basic hypotheses, and there's a ton more we can generate, but for this class we want to start with some basic things. And these are 5 basic hypotheses that we can easily test with the data from the survey. Now, I analyzed everything for you, so you wouldn't have to do that, because some of you may not be used to looking at data. Some of you may have taken the statistics class, some of you may not have. So I am handling all the data for you. You don't have to worry about the statistics. I've written the results section for you, and I've posted it to Brightspace. So let's look at the results section. These are our hypotheses, but let's also look at our results section here. And I'm just going to move over to results. So it's under written assignments as well. You'll find where it says results social connectedness study spring 2025. And I've written this for you. So you just have to copy and paste this into the final paper. That's it. You don't have to touch it. You just copy and paste it into your final paper. It goes after the method section and before the discussion section. So after the method and before the discussion, you're going to have results, and I've written them for you. You can just copy and paste it. So hypothesis 1 was supported as a positive correlation was found between social connectedness and life satisfaction. And that's the correlation. 0.481, and for psychology, that's a pretty decent correlation. It's pretty high for psychology. Psychology is well known for not having very high correlations like you would find in biology or physics or something like that, right? And that's the reason for that is there's more variability, there's more measurement error. We're not as good at measuring things in psychology as, say, we are in physics. And that's pretty obvious, right? But based on this survey, we found a positive relationship between social connectedness and life satisfaction. So as social connectedness increases, so does life satisfaction, right? Or as life satisfaction increases, so does social connectedness. You can't say one causes the other because it's correlational. So it could be that social connectedness causes life satisfaction. It could be that life satisfaction causes social connectedness. Or it could be some other variable we're not measuring that causes both. So we just have to say a relationship. We're not testing any causal relationships here, mainly because we did a survey. And when you're doing a survey, you're not able to draw cause and effect conclusions about anything. But you can talk about associations, which is a start. And that's what we hypothesized, and that was what we found. So it makes sense. As you're more connected with the world around you, you feel better about your life. If you're isolated, you're not feeling as well. So that makes sense. Hypothesis 2 was also supported as there was a negative correlation between social connectedness and anxiety, and also social connectedness and depression. And they're pretty strong correlations, negative 0.535 and negative 0.549. So as you become more socially connected, that leads to lower anxiety, or is associated with lower anxiety and lower levels of depression. Once again, connected, you're with other people. It doesn't have to be always online, but it could be partially online and partially in person or whatever. You feel like you're connected to other people in your life, you're going to feel less anxious and less depressed. If you feel more isolated, you're going to feel more anxious and more depressed. That's the association here. Hypothesis 3 was also supported as there was a negative correlation between social connectedness and somatization. So, as your social connectedness increases, your somatization decreases. So that's one aspect of physical health that we're looking at, somatization. Somatization is when you have physical symptoms, but there's no underlying cause that can be found. So a lot of times we have headaches and backaches and muscle pain and stomach aches, etc. And you go to the doctor and there's nothing wrong. Or they come up with a wastebasket diagnosis like you have irritable bowel syndrome, which basically means we don't know. Your digestive tract is working a little differently, but we're not sure what's wrong with it, but it's not serious, right? Or a fibromyalgia, which is pain in all four quadrants of your body, musculoskeletal pain. And the reason for this, we don't know. So there is a belief that a lot of emotional problems that are not resolved or not dealt with, or painful emotions, can get translated into somatic or physical complaints. And what this hypothesis is showing, this result is showing, is that if you're connected, you feel connected to your environment, to your friends, to your school, to your whatever, you're connected. That feeling of connectedness prevents or lowers somatization. And that's because you're probably able to deal with negative emotions in a more positive manner. Whereas when you're isolated, there's no way to properly deal with. I mean, there are ways to try to deal with negative emotions, but if you try to just deal with everything on your plate, negative on your plate, on your own, it would be difficult. Right? So social connectedness helps. Share your problems. Talk about your problems. And it just doesn't have to be just family, friends. It could be family, friends. It could be therapist. It could be anything. But you're sharing and you feel like you're connected with other people. Hypothesis 4 was not supported. So this is the one of the 5 that was not supported, as there was not a positive correlation between social connectedness and GPA. So the hypothesis was if you're socially connected, your GPA would go up. This wasn't the case. Actually, it was the opposite direction. That social connectedness led to more decrease in GPA. Now, why this is the case, it could just be the sample. It could be there were a lot of people that weren't sure of their GPA. They kind of guessed their GPA, or they wrote, I don't know my GPA. I saw a lot of missing data here. I saw a lot of incorrect GPAs. People were reporting GPAs of 5, which is not a valid GPA. So there were some issues with missing data or invalid data here with GPA. So I'm not quite sure how much stock I put into this because of all that missing and invalid data. But I could also make the case that people that are connected are socializing more, spending more time connecting with other people, right? Both in person and online, and maybe not, sitting in their room or sitting alone in a library just studying. Isolation is not healthy, but someone that's more to themselves or more studious and maybe more introverted, maybe not as distracted by other things, where you could be connected, online, etc. They may be able to up their GPA by just studying more and having less distractions. But that's not necessarily a healthy thing in the long run. But in the short run, it might be doable, right? You all know people that are just kind of to themselves, and they're just going to sit. Some people are very studious. They sit in their room, the quiet area, and they just study. And they don't want to talk to anybody. And that might be helpful in terms of getting good grades, but in the long run, that may not be as helpful for other things in life. And even academically, it's not helpful. As you keep going on, you need some kind of outlet. You need some kind of well-rounded life, right? You can't just be isolated and expect to perform really highly throughout your entire academic career. You're going to hit a pitfall where you're going to need those connections. You're going to need that social support. Maybe not undergraduate, but definitely graduate. When things are just overwhelming and you need people to help you, emotionally. You need people to distract you. You need people to hang out with. You need people to live life with. If you're just going to shut yourself in a room and expect to study and not talk to anybody for years in graduate school, it's going to be a difficult journey. Everybody needs that kind of balance and that support. So I'm thinking this correlation is most likely due to a lot of missing data. And when you have a lot of missing data, the data that you do have can have a greater influence on the result here. So I would say the missing data, the smaller sample, probably led to this result. Erroneous data as well. And you can think about also, like, if you ask a question, what is your GPA? There may be some social desirability there. So maybe your GPA is like 1.5 or less than 1. Are you really going to respond that your GPA is less than 1? Are you going to actually put that down on the survey? Or are you going to say something that makes you look like your GPA is higher, even if it's not true? So there may be some social desirability as well when you ask a question about GPA, because people can get sensitive about, putting their GPA out there, especially if they're not happy with their GPA. And then the last hypothesis was supported. There was a negative correlation between social connectedness and stress. That makes perfect sense. As social connectedness goes up, stress goes down. Right? As stress goes down, connectedness goes up. Being with people, talking to people, interacting with people, making friends, having supportive family, all of this stuff is going to help you with stress. Being isolated is not going to help you with stress. So 4 of these 5 hypotheses were supported with pretty large correlations. I mean, I was shocked that these correlations got up to the mid 5s, 0.5s. I mean, those are really strong correlations in a small sample. I mean, the sample size was limited. There was originally around 20 when I had to do the method section, but more and more people trickled into the sample afterwards. So by the time I ran the results, there was much more than 20. It was kind of in the 50s. And then by the end of the semester, there'll be more of those people, right? So I'm gathering data not just from the research methods classes, but from a lot of other psychology classes as well. And that's why you see the discrepancy in terms of the sample size. The goal is to have a bigger sample because the bigger sample is more representative of the population. It allows us to draw more accurate conclusions about the population when the sample's larger. But those are our results for now, right? And this is done. So you don't have to do anything with this. Just copy and paste it and put it into your final paper. You don't have to change anything. You don't have to reword anything. I've written this for you. So you don't have to write it yourself. You don't have to analyze the data. I've done it for you. Okay, so copy and paste. You're done with that. Now let's look at the discussion of what I want you to write up based on these results. And I'm trying to make it simple. I don't want you to reinvent the wheel. I mean, most of this course is about following directions. And that's why I'm making these videos, because the videos help you follow directions. You know, if I could just write things down, but if I just wrote things down and said, read this and follow these directions, a lot of students would be not doing it. Even when I make the videos, I'm getting bizarre submissions with stuff that I don't ask for. So you need to really follow directions. And if you have a question, then you should be emailing me. And if you need to meet with me, I am available. I will make time to meet with you. But just don't, write an email and say, I screwed up. I did this. I thought I was doing it right, but I did it wrong. Well, don't take that guess. If you're not certain, just ask. And most of the time I can resolve your problems through email. I can answer your questions through email. And if I can't, then we can just hop on Zoom and answer questions. And I'll be happy to explain what I'm looking at and what I want, rather than you just submit something that's not correct. So the point being, if you're confused at any point, ask. And that's what you have to do in an online class. We're not meeting in person. We're not really meeting online. So I've laid out the work for you. I'm trying to give you a path towards success. But if something is ambiguous or something's confusing or you're not sure, drop me a line rather than submit something that's not correct. So let's look at the discussion. How to write the discussion section. So here's where you're going to upload the discussion assignment as a PDF file. And that's where I'll give you feedback. And here's the discussion section. Now, I give a lot of feedback. The more problems with the paper, the more feedback you're going to get. If the submission is great, there's going to be less feedback because there's not much I need to tell you. But when the submission is not great, there's going to be more feedback. And so you have to embrace the feedback. The feedback is not criticism. It's just I'm telling you what you need to fix for the final paper. Because I want you to fix what you've done wrong when you submit the final paper. And that's all it is. There's no criticisms. I understand. I'm not expecting a perfect rough draft, but I do expect you to follow directions and to put an effort in. And I can always tell when the effort's not there. When the directions aren't followed because someone didn't read the directions, didn't watch the video. Yeah, they just submitted something. And they submitted the wrong thing. So make sure if you're confused by the directions, you email me. So here's how to write the discussion section. Click on that. So I want 4 paragraphs. I want the word discussion, the major header discussion. 12-point font, non-bold, not italics. Just 12-point font. You can use Times New Roman. You can use Arial. Use a legible font. Those are fonts I use. Write the word discussion in the header, the top part of the paper. Center it. Then below it, in the regular part of the paper, right, not in the header, but in the top part of the paper, you're going to write paragraph 1. You're not going to write the word paragraph 1. You're just going to write a paragraph. You're going to have 4 paragraphs. That's all I want. 4 decent-sized paragraphs. It's going to be probably more than a page, but I don't want like 10 pages. 4 paragraphs. In paragraph 1, restate the hypotheses. There are 5 hypotheses. Tell me, hypothesis 1, was it supported? So was there a positive correlation between life satisfaction and social connectedness? And there was, right? We did support that hypothesis. So you're going to write, without the statistical, you don't need to put the stats in here. No stats here. You're just going to write the results of the 5 hypotheses. That's it. So hypothesis 1 was supported. There was a positive correlation between self-connectedness, social connectedness, and life satisfaction. Then you're going to move on to hypothesis 2. And you're going to write those out, the results of those 5 hypotheses. 4 of them were supported, 1 of them wasn't. So GPA and social connectedness, positive correlation, was the one that wasn't supported. The rest of them were. So write out the results of those 5 hypotheses without the stats. Right? That's your first paragraph. Put it together. Put those 5 hypotheses, whether they were supported or not, in a paragraph form. That's paragraph 1. Double space. 1-inch margins. 12-point font. Paragraph 2. How do your findings relate to past research? So maybe go back to your introduction when you did the literature review. If you don't have it, go back into Google Scholar and PsycInfo and find past research. Right? So was there past research on the relationship between social connectedness and life satisfaction? That's the first hypothesis. Go back and find that. Right? Find past research on it and tell me, do our current results in the survey, the study we're doing, do our current results support the past research, or does it diverge from the past research? So were your results similar or different from previous research? There are 5 hypotheses. You should have 5 studies here that you're citing. Right? Because with 5 hypotheses, you have 5 studies. Now, those studies should be in the introduction. But if they're not, go find more research on it. Right? So you're going to say the current results from the survey are similar to what was found in so-and-so's study. You're going to cite their study. So in paragraph 2, I want citations. I want citations from past research where you're comparing and contrasting the current results. Now, how could you do that? As I showed before, Google Scholar, social connectedness and life satisfaction. There's plenty of studies here. Find a study. If you want to go on PsycInfo, you can do that too. Here's a past study, 2023, social connectedness, life satisfaction after the pandemic. So these people are thinking similarly along the lines that I'm thinking. Let's look at the abstract. University students' sense of belonging has been underrated since the pandemic. Okay. This was in Turkey, actually. Findings demonstrate the validity and reliability of the belongingness questionnaire. Life satisfaction was significantly predicted by sense of belonging. So they showed a positive correlation here. So our results are similar to these people. They're in Turkey, we're not. But the results are similar, right? Then look at a second hypothesis. Were our results similar to previous research for hypothesis 2? Then do the same thing for hypothesis 3, hypothesis 4, hypothesis 5. And cite those studies. So there should be citations in paragraph 2. One paragraph, one solid paragraph. Paragraph 3, if you fail to support the hypotheses, which was hypothesis 4, explain why. So we failed to support the hypothesis between, the correlation between GPA and social connectedness. I gave you some possible reasons, like, missing data, smaller sample size, social desirability, people putting GPAs that are false into the survey. And that sounds, why would people do that? People do that. People do that all the time. I mean, that's one of the limitations of a survey is it's really up to you to report. It's called self-report. And, they may say, my GPA is 3.8, 3.9. When it's not. Because it makes them look better. So, I'm not accusing anyone of doing it, but it happens. So those are possible reasons. Limitations of the study, small sample. Right? 50-something subjects, not a big sample. What are the limitations? Also, sample was from New York. And predominantly New York City. Is that sample of New York City similar to the population of college students? No. I mean, college students somewhere else might think differently than college students in New York City. So there's that issue with the sample. Sample is very young. Mostly young college students. Maybe older people, social connectedness is viewed a little differently. I don't know, but those are possible limitations of the study. Always want limitations to put limitations in your discussion because it shows that you're being thoughtful and you're also not sort of overselling your research. You're not making your research out to be bigger than it really is. If you say, there are no limitations, our study was great, we found everything we wanted, it's great. Well, the study could be good, but I find it almost impossible. There's no perfect study. All studies have problems, so the fact that you would completely ignore any problem it's a little too arrogant for a discussion section. At least that's how I feel if I'm reviewing a paper and the authors are a little bit too much celebrating their results, and I'm just like, hey, your results are good, but let's check it a little bit. Let's keep it a little under control. Are there problems with internal external validity? So internal validity is drawing cause and effect conclusions about the study. And in the case of a survey, we can't draw cause and effect conclusions because we don't have random assignment. And therefore, the internal validity is low with a survey. So our internal validity of the study is low. If you want higher internal validity, you run an experiment. We didn't run an experiment. External validity is how well do our results relate to the population. And that's also questionable because our sample is young and also from New York. And is a young undergraduate from New York City representative of college students or people in general? It may not even be representative of college students in general, let alone the regular U.S. population or the world population. So there's always problems with Our external validity could be better, but it is what we have access to. It's pretty low. External validity could be better. Paragraph 4. What are the real-world implications of the study? Well, the study shows some interesting things about, being connected, being with people that are your friends and family in school, and feeling connected and part of a group. And it's highly beneficial, and we see that in the results. And how would you address the limitations of the study? So that's up to you to think about how would you go about fixing the problems in this study. And there are problems, and there are ways to fix it. This is a pilot study. This is not a full study, so there are a lot of issues that can be fixed in this study. How can you make the study better? So 4 solid paragraphs tackling these points that I'm talking about for your discussion section. And then you're done. Don't make it harder than it is. I am keeping it very structured for a reason. You're learning. I'm trying to keep things structured. Some students want to reinvent the wheel. And they want to show, well, I can go above and beyond this by writing a 10-page discussion section on all sorts of things. More is not better, right? So if you can write this in a page and a half, 2 pages, if you write this in 1 page and you're to the point, it's fine. Like, there's no page limit. If it takes you a page and a half or 2 pages, fine. If it takes you 20 pages, not fine. Because that means you're just adding, you're going places I don't want you to go. So keep it very simple and keep it structured. And if you have any questions when you're writing, drop me a line. If you need to meet with me during my office hours, let me know. If you can't meet with me during my office hours, let me know that as well, and I will try to find time on other days during the week to do a Zoom. If you want to do a Zoom at another time. I try my best to be available for people. So I look forward to reading the submissions, double space it, save it as a PDF, upload it where you see discussion here. Right here, you're going to upload that. You don't need to upload the results because I wrote the results. You don't need to put the results here. You just put the results in the final paper. What you do need to do is upload the discussion section as a PDF that I just talked about, the 4 paragraphs, right? Upload that, double space, 1-inch margins, 12-point font, in the correct format. And then I will take a look at it, give you feedback, and then you'll revise again for the final paper. And if you have any questions, let me know. I think that's it. Hope you enjoy the better weather. Hopefully, better weather, better weather to come. And you're doing well. And please drop me a line if you have any questions. And I'll see you online for the next part in the next couple of weeks. Bye for now.